I apologize for any of the inconvenience there. It seems like everything is working out there. So sorry about that. But we are up and running now. Happy Wednesday, July 1st, to everybody listening. Lots to get into here today and not a lot of time to do it. Of course, I say that realistically. I mean, who the hell's going to stop me? I can talk for as long as I want at this stage of the game. Gotta love it. I've been getting inundated with texts. The news of what happened made it all the way to Pittsburgh. And all of my old Pittsburgh friends are now reaching out to me yesterday and today. And it's always flattering to hear from them. Um, they had some choice words for what's going on. And I heard from one gubernatorial candidate of Wisconsin about my firing. And I'm not going to say who it was, but let's just say it started with fuck them. And I'll let you guys infer who I might have heard from. Um, we got a busy show today. If you do not follow me on any of my socials, first of all, what the hell? Search my name, Ben Cominos. But I posted a video at about 7 a.m. this morning. We are going to be joined by Alderman Brian Defferding of Neenah, District 1. For those of you listening to me, what's up, Andy? What's up, Alex? For those of you listening to me on the Minocqua Substack who maybe are first getting to know me right now, I've been a very vocal voice, not the most vocal. There's some awesome groups out there that help to keep me informed and keep me aware of what's going on in the world of surveillance and flock cameras and all of these other um, different ways for our government to be able to monitor us at all times, and they are doing phenomenal work. I myself came late to the game, but I am very, very much anti-surveillance. So we have built a bit of a relationship over the course of the last month and a half. Alderman Brian Defferding, who is the alderperson for District 1 in Neenah, will be on this show at 9:30. The reason he's going to be on this show is that the last two meetings of the Common Council in Neenah have been heavily attended, and more importantly, flock cameras have been vehemently opposed. And the police chief, the mayor of Neenah, and plenty of others are doing whatever they can in order to try and get these cameras across the finish line. Brian has been one of the few voices that has been very vocal on the council in opposition to what is going on. More importantly, we they are trying to move the next meeting to behind closed doors. And the reason they want it behind closed doors is because they know damn well that if it is in front of open doors, we're going to be there. We're going to be vocal. The people don't want flock cameras. And the fact of the matter is, we elect people to do the things that the people want. Mayor Borchardt of Neenah was elected just recently to go and do what the people want, and now he's doing whatever he can to get these cameras put up. Oshkosh already rejected them. Appleton already rejected them, and now we're trying to do the same thing in Neenah. And damn it all, I will be using my voice in order to get that across the finish line, and I hope you all will use your voices as well. I will be bringing up, I've noticed the propaganda across my social streams. We did catch a black guy doing crimes with flock cameras. So maybe flock cameras are actually better than we thought they were. But what do I know? Something tells me that that's not going to be used just to catch people of minority status. The reason why you're seeing these stories floated is because they're trying to reach our grandparents. And no offense to the boomers that are out there, but oftentimes you guys are the most easily um, convinced of these matters from the perspective of crime and punishment, essentially. So we'll be talking with Brian about why they want to move behind closed doors, why he thinks the meetings legally should not be able to be moved behind closed doors, and what the future of this discussion is going to look like. I'm very much looking forward to that. That is at 9:30. There's lots more to talk about in the world of politics. Until then, though, um, as Killer Clown says, the powers that be in Neenah only ever do what one rich person wants. Is that who you talking about? You talking about the U-lines? You talking about Menards? You talking about who's the rich person? Out of curiosity, in your mind, who do you think? Because I am free in all the ways other people in media are not. I can finally talk shit on the sponsors that were on the station that I was on and not worry about losing any money for myself. Not the sponsors, of course, that physically sponsor Outside the Box. Oh, Bergstrom. All right. Yeah, that's another one. I buy that. I buy that. There's a handful of names out there that I'm sure you guys are all probably thinking when you hear those kind of things. But so that is going to be at 9:30. Serial Killer Clown kind of echoing that sentiment that Mr. Bergstrom is the loudest voice in regards to that. I don't doubt it. Nothing else is new. Nothing, not any news to me. As I take a bit of a victory sip there, would you guys buy one of these if we made merch? Would you guys get a Waka Waka mug? Is that something you guys would do? Um, but I want to start off with something I talked about last night. And don't get me wrong, who's the plumber the Fox Valley needs, Banana? Well, that would be Tim Roush. Tim Roush is the best plumber in Northeast Wisconsin, and I can't recommend enough that everybody listening to me should go and check out Tim Roush, even though I no longer work at the station. I see you guys saying you would buy that water bottle. You'd rather have T-shirts first. I have merch, people. We have a tier list of things we're trying to get off the ground here. So there's a lot of things trending. So everybody just be patient, and we are going to get there. Big Tim Roush fans, though. Mickey says she wants both. Carla says she loves Tim. I do too. Mallory says, I used to live in the town of Menasha, West Side, now Fox Crossing, and Bergstrom has huge influence over the area. You have to wonder, maybe that's why I got let go. We'll never really know, will we? And here I was pulling my punches on the local billionaires and wealthy people because I thought that would allow for me to continue to have my platform. If there's one lesson I learned, it's just always say what's on your mind and come what may, because you can end up pulling your punches and then you don't end up getting where you needed to go anyway, you know? Susan says boomers were responsible for a massive crime wave in their youth during the 70s and 80s. I did my share. I feel that. I feel that. I mean, realistically, if you're going to follow the rules all the time, that sounds kind of boring, honestly. Now, obviously, I want to talk about what took place in Colorado last night, but I don't want to limit myself to just 20 minutes to be able to get into that. So I'm going to save that for the 10 o'clock hour. And if you guys haven't seen, the progressive flank of the Democratic Party is continuing to stack up victories across the nation right now, with the most recent ones being in Colorado. And the way that it's being talked about, once again, is hilarious. But I want to start. Oh, and one last programming note. Monday, 10 a.m., we will have our first gubernatorial candidate on Outside the Box Unfiltered. Kelda Royce's comms director, Jalen, who is one of the first people that reached out to me upon arriving at the Fox Valley, reached out to me while I was doing my show yesterday. If you were listening to yesterday's edition of Outside the Box, you may have heard me say, oh, that's Kelda Royce's comms person. I didn't expect to see them there. We have that set up for Monday at 10 a.m. So make sure that you can check that. Obviously, this won't be the last time that I'm referencing this for you people, but you people. What do you mean, you people? For you guys, but just so you remember, as you come back from a weekend of, I'm sure, what can only be described as partying and celebrating the 250th anniversary of America, when you come back on Monday, 10 a.m., Kelda Royce on Outside the Box. Looking forward to that conversation very much. Now, I had this conversation in a more relaxed scene during Ben After Dark, which is on from 7 to 8 p.m. at night. But I want to talk a little bit about the birthright citizenship that was announced during my morning show yesterday. Before I do that, Justin says, I knew that. I don't understand the influence on the city politics, though. Never lived there. Herb says, Grandpa Bergstrom owned a paper mill in downtown Neenah. The family owns an island in the Caribbean. Paper Valley Hotel, multiple cars. All right. I'm down to shit talk some rich, wealthy people. I'm here. And Mikey says, as soon as I had seen Brian Borchardt was backed by Bergstroms and Galloways, I knew he was going to try and sell Neenah out further. But what do you expect from a carpetbagger? I feel that. Do that. And by the way, Mayor Borchardt, I made the offer live or at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I made the offer when I was still employed, and I am making the offer again. If you want to defend your beliefs on the matter, I'd be happy to have you on the program whenever you'd like. So you got my email. Looking forward to hearing from you. Um, but so we will get into all that at 9:30. I do want to start off with the birthright citizenship conversation because I think that sticks out to a lot of us here. And I mentioned this during the nighttime live, and I can't leave a link for anybody to speak on YouTube until after I speak to Brian, because otherwise that's going to it cancels it out, and then I have a whole programming snafu. So we'll get there soon enough. um we'll get to comments in the 10 o'clock hour, but I at least want to start with my thoughts on the matter. As I mentioned yesterday, the Supreme Court essentially allowed for about a dozen different decisions to come down the pipeline over the course of the last 2 days of their session, because I guess that's the way it works. Like, could you imagine if you work in radio and you do a ratings book and you just mail it in the entire ratings book and you wait till the last 2 weeks of shows to start trying? Like, it doesn't work that way. I'm interested what job you can just mail it in for months and then end up not and then just do your job for 3 days, and everyone's like, people don't understand how hard they have it. Like, we probably shouldn't be doing things that way, but that's a problem that's well above my pay grade. Birthright citizenship has been deemed legal. Donald Trump's executive order to try and remove birthright citizenship is not going to fly. For those of you that have been living under a rock, what birthright citizenship means is if you are born in America, you are an American, even if your parents are not legal. A lot of us have become Americans that way. My grandparents immigrated here legally before anybody tries to boot me out of this country, because I have a knack for pointing out the problems in the system. But it doesn't change the fact that I know it's not necessarily as straightforward for all different groups. The Trump administration, including Donald Trump, obviously, but everybody in the administration has been very anti that as a policy and has been trying to rework it. Now, MAGA has always been very short-sighted. If you start messing with the 14th Amendment, that means the Second Amendment, the First Amendment is on the chopping block. We will be talking about the impacts of the Fourth Amendment brought about by these flock cameras in Nina with Brian Defferding in just about 15 minutes. I do not want to open this Pandora's box, this can of worms, trying to determine which amendments the founding fathers got 100 out of 100 on, and there's no need to rework it, and which ones are no longer relevant to America. I think anybody who's listening with a basic capacity for common sense can understand why that's a slippery slope that I don't think any of us want to be standing on as these decisions are made. The Supreme Court decided 5-4 that the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship should be allowed to stand. Now, I had a conversation with this last night, and I was speaking with my friend Ishmael, who is a Somali immigrant, who told me that I need to be less cynical. I need to be more optimistic about what is going on. And he's right. And David, by the way, I saw your message. I will get in touch with you. I promise. I apologize for not responding. I just remembered when I saw you. But we'll get you on the program. David's running for office as a member of the Green Party. We met in person about 2 months ago, and I think you guys would be interested in hearing from him. I will get you on the program. I was told by my Somali friend that I should be less cynical, that he's so excited that the people that were born here are still going to be viewed as citizens. And Ishmael's a wonderful person. I'm very happy that he found my live, he found my TikTok account, and he's willing to continue the discourse that we have during my nighttime lives. And he's right. I should be more cynical, or should be less cynical. But here's the problem with that. The Supreme Court just has decided by one person that the Constitution still applies. That should be a 9-0 decision in favor of the Constitution. And what's even scarier is that Pocket Yahtzee, Steve Miller, has been going all over onto any media organization that will allow him to come on and say it should have been 9-0 the other way. And just, I am not a lawyer. I am not a judge. I have never had to make a ruling on anything. But what I do know is the Constitution is oftentimes viewed as the supreme law of the land. And the idea that Pocket Himmler decides to say, actually, it should have been 9-0 the other way. It should have been 9-0, get rid of all of these different immigrants that were born here, is such an obvious misinterpretation of the way things are going and designed to placate the bigots. There's no other way around it. And I have been very hold on one second here. Somebody's blowing up my text line. I really need to remember to mute this shit while I'm doing these lives. When I see the way that these are interpreted, the way that Stephen Miller is trying to pretend that things are happening, it clearly is designed to placate the people who claim we're not voting just based on race. We are not voting just based on immigrants. We actually have a laundry list of concerns. And then when the Supreme Court decides 5-4, and Brian, I see you backstage. I'll get you on shortly, my friend. When the Supreme Court decides 5-4 that we should not or we should allow birthright citizenship to continue, that spits directly in the face of the Constitution. And as I mentioned, regardless of who you are, I'm a lefty. I'm a pro Second Amendment lefty. Don't touch the Second Amendment. Don't touch the First Amendment. We're allowed to say what we want to say. Your radio station can fire you, but the government can't come after you for any reasons other than that. The Fourth Amendment, illegal search and seizure. You don't get to put cameras up and spy on us and determine that we've committed a crime without a warrant. All of these are guaranteed by our Constitution. And you know what else is? Birthright citizenship. So the idea that people in the White House, including the sitting president, are trying to rile up a community of people to be against birthright citizenship while screaming anytime somebody tries to make some form of gun legislation as an infringement on the Constitution highlights the lack of consistent thinking that is exhibited amongst a lot of people in that political party and realistically across the political spectrum. Because something tells me the same people that don't want the 14th Amendment touched are more than happy to make changes to the Second Amendment. So when the discourse becomes the Supreme Court should have voted 9-0 in favor of Trump's EO, to me, that shows a fundamental lack of understanding of how our Constitution works, and that is coming from people that have far too much power to impact exactly how our Constitution operates. Now, I have more thoughts on this, but I'd rather not keep our guest waiting. So I saw, Rachel, you were trying to hop on my TikTok. We will get you on after the fact, and I will share a separate guest link or a caller link for anybody who wants to chime in on this EO, flock cameras, or anything else we're talking about after I wrap this conversation up. But as I've been kind of teasing throughout the course of the morning here, I'm currently joined by Brian Defferding. He is the alderperson for the 1st District of Neenah, and in my opinion, one of the only voices of common sense when I show up at these Common Council meetings here. Hello, Brian. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Great, great. I appreciate you knocking out a little bit of time here to be with us. I know you guys got a ton on your plate these days, and it looks like potentially a meeting this evening that I would love that I'd love to kind of get into here today. So I mean, like, we saw your post here. I mean, obviously, how long have you been in your position? Let's start there.
Not long, since April of this year, so only a couple months.
Did you, when you campaigned to achieve your position here, were you talking about surveillance? Was this kind of sprung on you? Were you aware of this flock camera issue, or how did you know, or were you aware that this part of your job was going to be included in this?
Yeah, that part I was aware, but that wasn't actually an issue that I campaigned on. I was, for the most part, I campaigned on a lot of other different things. There was a lot of other surrounding issues, and a lot of people were very unhappy with their current alderman that was representing them for different reasons. There was some various projects that were happening here in the city of Neenah, and I know that there were a lot of people who were not happy with it. They didn't feel that they were represented well. They felt that their views were dismissed, and I took it upon myself to just basically toss my hat in and start knocking on doors and talking to the people and meeting them where they're at. I didn't even mention Flock whatsoever. I did know that the city of Neenah did have a contract with Flock. I didn't know to what degree. When I got elected, I was put on the Public Services and Safety Committee, and that's their committee of jurisdiction. And so immediately I wanted to check out the details of their contract with Flock, and I wanted to have it readdressed as soon as possible to discuss basically just do we want the city of Neenah do we want the people in the city of Neenah to be under this amount of surveillance? And I looked at the discussions too. I looked at the minutes of when Flock was originally presented to the city of Neenah, and this was back in 2022. There wasn't really a lot of deep dive questions. I mean, we had some superficial questions about do we own the cameras? Does Flock own the cameras? And then that was maybe about it. And then everyone seemed to be excited to have it, and that it would catch criminals faster, and so they just thought it was great. And so it didn't really seem like they I think this was really new technology back in 2022, and nobody realized just how far that technology has evolved and how quickly it has evolved and how it's changed into just simply taking pictures of people's license plates into something very, very different.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description. I talk about that quite often. It can start off as a positive, or more importantly, as a non-issue. And as you begin to see the problems kind of percolate, we're seeing the same thing with data centers.
Mhm.
We already have 5,000 data centers built, and it's only just now that people are pushing back against them because they realize the drawbacks, the
Mhm.
negatives to what these data centers represent. So obviously, you have a little bit of limited experience doing these common council meetings, but it seems like for some of the people that this isn't their first rodeo, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
It's a bit more hectic than these meetings normally are anytime these flock cameras get brought up, which is kind of a lead into why you're here today. But realistically, this is the issue that's bringing people out in Neenah right now. As obviously, as the chief of police likes to highlight, it's only a fraction of the percent, but it's enough to get people showing up on a Tuesday afternoon at 5 when people have jobs and families and things to do, willing to vocalize their opinions, which really should be resonating with the people in your position who are elected to represent us.
Yes, yeah, and it should be noted too in the public comments part of that meeting. I mean, we had people from all walks of life there, all walks of life. I mean, and you mentioned that too previously in your show. We had conservative Christians that were concerned about their Fourth Amendment rights and their right to privacy. And then like we had socialists there, and we had people that were survivors of domestic abuse, and they revealed just how scary it is for them to know that cops can have access to this, and they don't feel safe. They feel less safe. And I don't think that is often brought up, because if you're not a survivor of domestic abuse, you don't know, and you're not aware of that. But imagine if you find out that your abuser knows where you live. That can be very, very frightening. And so, I mean, that's things like that. We've got people that are just regular folks that are that they work, they live in Neenah, they work at the mill. They're like, hey, I don't want the government to be taking pictures of my car wherever I go, and only to and not only that, but they find out that that these cameras are doing a little bit further, going a little bit further than just simply taking pictures of license plates. It's going a little bit further than that. And they're realizing that the technology has evolved so fast that the courts almost cannot keep up. And so that's why, I mean, we think about a legislation in the state regarding data privacy, and what you were talking about regarding data centers. It's evolving so quickly that people are starting to realize just how encompassing this is becoming. And it's important for the people to just simply push back and be like, hey, hold on a second here. We should probably take a look at due process. We should take a look at how we can utilize this technology while also preserving our right to privacy and our right to personal property. And then, just simply the question of, do we want the government to surveil us like this? I know a lot of people like to think about. They mentioned the dystopian novels of 1984 and Brave New World, and those are pretty good ones. But a lot of people forget about its predecessor, called We, by a Russian novelist that was published in the 1920s, 1921, 1922. And that was a dystopian novel where everyone just basically lives in a glass apartment, and everything that they do is seen. It's kind of a panopticon type of colony, and everything that they do has to be exactly coordinated to the minute, so that they could be like this cogs in the machine. And so I think that when it comes to flock cameras, it's very, very sneaky. It just slowly just kind of pervades into our personal lives, and so that's, I mean, these dystopian novels are very important because it allows us to have that critical thinking and be like, hey, we could actually get there. It's possible that we could actually get there, and that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, we're speaking with Brian Defferting, alderperson for the First District of Neenah, specifically about flock cameras. And that kind of brings us, you talk about, I was unfamiliar with that Russian novel, first of all. I'm going to check that out. Secondly, it kind of unintentionally segues into why I have you here today. This is a conversation about max availability, about being able to monitor things 24/7. And the people of Neenah and the surrounding Fox Valley area have been so loud that they'd rather the surveillance for all of us. However, these meetings should start happening behind closed doors, which you had some opinions on that caught my eye which is why I wanted to bring you on the show. Mm-hmm. So, two-parter here. Why the abrupt change to getting rid of the public being allowed to watch it when they are the ones that work for us? And two, you seem to think that is actually, I don't know if the term is illegal, but most certainly at the very least not following the rules as to why a meeting has to be moved from public to private. So what led to the change, and why do you think that change shouldn't be happening?
Well, I think, the thing of it is we have Neenah has a city attorney that likes to put stuff in closed session a lot. And it goes, and it's typical, the logic behind it is that, we might be sued. And so if the city of Neenah might be sued, it then falls under this umbrella definition that we must put it into closed session. But that doesn't fly with me. That's not. I don't agree with that. That's not true, and I don't think that's going to work legally speaking, because you have to prove that there is substantial evidence of either a forthcoming lawsuit from an entity or a lawsuit that the city of Neenah is going to impose on someone else before anything could move into closed session. So we have a city attorney that's being very loose with the definitions here, and this is where you have to be very cognizant of take a look at the actual rules and research this, and research that state civics to basically push back, because that's our job as aldermen, is to make and aldermen, and to make sure that we're keeping them in check. And that's part of our job. We can't just simply go along with whatever the city attorney says. We have to be like, no, that's not true. I did some research here, and that's not correct. There's that check and balance that's so important. We talk about it here on the federal level, but this is how it's applied here on the local level, and that's why it's so important to get involved in local politics. Because who would have thought that we would be having this constitutional conversation here on the city level? But here we are. And this is a lot of people think that we have to discuss this on with Congress and with the president and with the Senate, but it's actually happening right here in our own backyard.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and I noticed the timing is uncanny. That the meeting is suggested to be moved behind closed doors, while at the same time, my Facebook feed, and I'm friends with a lot of anti-flock people. Assuming the algorithm works a certain way, I should be seeing anti-flock stuff. Now, I'm a big proponent of my show. Kind of is a sweeping range of opinions and attitudes, so I welcome differing opinions. We're now seeing the pro flock stories kind of percolate through all of our local news sources right now. We caught an individual in Appleton who apparently allegedly took somebody's life in Neenah. Do you see the trajectory that you're on? Because I'm sure these conversations go beyond the stuff that the public is able to see when I'm out with the 2 times that I've interacted with you. Is there any changing of minds going on based on the public discourse, or it seems like the police are going to do the pro-surveillance thing because it's going to make their job easier, and stories like what took place earlier this week are going to be run up the flagpole versus the people that might be labeled as conspiracy theorists? I don't believe we are, but might be labeled as conspiracy theorists surrounding the excess surveillance. Is there an actual discourse happening, or when you have these conversations, do you kind of know how everybody's going to vote already?
No, I think these are conversations. These are active conversations. I don't necessarily think there are some people that definitely are pro flock cameras, and one of the things that I bring up with them is what happened 6 years ago. With the Safer at Home order, with and COVID-19, and what if we had a governor that decided to put all of their maximum effort and resources into enforcing that Safer at Home order to the hilt? Could these flock cameras be used for you if you decided to make a trip to Dairy Queen or something like that, or if you decided to go see a friend, if you decided to go to a backyard barbecue, if you decided to, whether it be go to church or do you think what would happen if we had flock cameras all around your city, all around to the point where it's in every intersection? Do you think, would you be comfortable with that? And and that question right there, like if you have to pause and you have to hesitate just a little bit, that casts the seed of doubt in their head of just how a tool like this could be used, not just to catch the bad guys, but for tyranny and for human control. And that is important. And sometimes you don't necessarily have to leave the conversation thinking that knowing that that you won. You just have to. It's important to cast that seed of doubt in their head, because and then walk away, because that's that part is very important in our public in this civic discourse that we're having with the community.
Very interesting. How can people listening right now get involved? What's the next step for the community to do, assuming this meeting isn't available to the public?
Show up at the city council meetings, and there's still going to be a public comment section in the beginning of the city council meetings, and not just. And I wouldn't just simply say show up at the meetings, because it's more than that. Keep in mind that we're just aldermen. We live in the neighborhood. You can have coffee with us. You can have breakfast with us or brunch with us. We live in the neighborhood, so you can actually reach out to us, and whether it be like maybe a 20-minute phone call or a 30-minute phone call, and just talk about your opinions on things, because you have to keep in mind that the city of Neenah is not like how it is in a lot of other big cities. I mean, we have 9 aldermen here to represent 28,000 people. So, we're just local folks too, and we should provide time to listen to you and to represent you. And it's important, not necessarily. We don't need to be hostile. We just need to just say, look, I live in this community. I live here, and I'm very concerned about being under this type of surveillance. And I believe in my right to privacy. And I think that these cameras need to be taken down, and let us have a conversation of what type of surveillance that we think is good or bad for the community before we go any further. And so I think that part is important. And but at the same time, in this particular case, when we see that something is being moved over to closed session and under very questionably legal reasons, at that point, then it is very important to show up at the city council meetings at the public comment section and just basically call people out and say, this is not correct. This is not right. This is not, you're not following, protocol for closed session. This doesn't fall in the parameters of closed session. And that we need to call out the people that put this on closed session, whether it be the mayor or the city attorney or both, or the chief of police. That's our job as citizens, to hold these elected officials accountable. And I know that they don't like that, but that's the point. We have to provide that check. And so that's it. I remember at that last public services and safety meeting that you attended to, we had people there that was when they were talking, they were staring right at the flock representatives, and they were looking right at the chief of police. And I felt that was beautiful, because you need to be able to be in the same room and look at somebody and say that's BS. And I think that part was beautiful to me.
I love that. Brian Defferding, Alderman for the 1st District of Neenah. Thank you for taking a little bit of time to talk about what's going on, keep people informed. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it, Ben.
Of course. You take it easy, man. We'll talk soon.
You too. You take care.
Bye. Good stuff there. So now thoughts. I see a bunch of you guys already have your messages coming in there. Mallory, yours caught my eye. Brian loses me when he starts talking about public health. I don't appreciate some of the stuff he did on our county board regards to public health. Well, that's exactly the issue, right, Mallory? And that's kind of what I focused on 2 weeks, or when was that? Last week? Was that only 8 days ago? My God, guys, never lose your job. A week goes on for a month. 8 days ago, when I was at that meeting, I guarantee you a lot of us didn't have anything in common. I told you there was a gentleman who actually joined me on the show the next day who was like, I'm going to quote the ACLU. Now, I'm not a big fan of the ACLU, but I think they're on point here. I am a fan of the ACLU. I think the ACLU does some good things. And that guy and I probably don't see eye to eye on a lot. I'm sure there's a ton that Brian and I disagree on, but that doesn't matter. What we watched just happen right there with that conversation is, in my opinion, the way civil discourse used to work. It's how bridges are built. It's how coalitions are built. You don't necessarily agree on everything. As I've stated 1,000 times over, if MAGA could just drop the freaking birthright citizenship and anti-immigrant thing, there's a lot about what MAGA says economically that makes sense. They just aim their frustration in the wrong direction. And so, like, there are people from all walks of life with all different opinions on the matter, that I think, if you put the differences aside, you begin to realize the similarities. Personally. Rusty saying public cameras give him anxiety. And I feel that. Sharon says, Ben, as I mentioned in a Facebook message post, it's not just flock cameras, it's also meta glasses that allow you to take pictures and videos with those glasses. We're not China yet, but we're getting there. Agreed. And I said as much, Sharon, in the last meeting that I went to. I said, I grew up in a version of America where we mocked communist China. We'd say, can you believe that the people in China accept this kind of surveillance, and now the same people that used to say that when I were a kid are the same people telling you that we need the cameras to catch the criminals. And he says, wait, you lost your job? Yeah, follow me on all my socials. I appreciate all the support. Born and raised, did you accidentally tap to be a guest again? It's okay if you did, but I'll let you come on if you want to come on. You're more than welcome to say something here. Or was that just an accident? All good. Um, but so when you see that, what do you say? But yes, we do have stuff in common, including the surveillance stuff. It's distressing that we have to watch what we say and do because of meta glasses. Oh, absolutely. And on top of that, um Axon is Flock's competitor. Like I say this during the meetings as well, because oftentimes it gets portrayed as an anti-Flock thing. It gets like as if Flock is the issue, and there are a lot of things to be frustrated with Flock. I'm not anti-Flock. I am anti all of these cameras. I did see Ali say though, where did it go? We keep approaching this. We keep approaching like this. We're about to have no cameras and no law enforcement. Are you saying that as a negative or a positive? Luke says he's okay with the meta glasses, not okay with the flock cameras. That feels like it's six of one, half a dozen of the other, honestly. Um, to me personally. And then Trump signs a deal with Axon. They bought, and like the way the media spins it is, can you believe Trump bought $5 million worth of Axon stock right before the deal with ICE, where they bought a crap ton of tasers from Axon. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's absolutely corrupt, and this president is breaking levels of corruption. And to all the MAGAs that never stopped bitching about Hunter Biden, nobody's ever going to take you seriously ever again when it comes to corruption. Please understand, nobody's going to take you seriously. But the corruption part of that story isn't the story. It's the fact that Axon is Flock's biggest competitor, and they are absolutely tying themselves in with ICE right now. And I don't know if you guys have ever known how I felt about ICE. I'm not sure if I've ever made it apparent how I feel about ICE, but in case I haven't, I'm still not going to because I'd hate to lose my job. But Ethan says, peek outside the box right there. Coalitions of people that don't agree but agree on something that is overwhelmingly popular that the government tries forcing onto us anyway. Exactly. Um, Ali says it's a breakdown of the social contract. Violet says we love the tea towel. Susan says, Ben, it was a well documented fact that high crime housing complexes frequently lack security cameras. Why? You tell me. Well, there's a difference between what you're saying there, Susan. It's the Russ Feingold comment that I don't have in front of me, so I'm just going to have to paraphrase it. But when the Patriot Act was being signed into law, he basically goes on a diatribe saying if we took away all of our civil freedoms, we would probably catch a bunch more of the terrorists. I can't say the T word in front of TikTok, but a bunch of the people responsible for a day in 9/11. He's like, but it also takes away what it means to be American. Yes, if we had eyes everywhere, if we have cameras everywhere, there will be less crime. And you'll also get tickets for going 36 in a 35. And you also eventually will start getting tickets for speaking out against our orange dad president or Kamala Harris for circumventing democracy. I do not want to live in a world where the cameras are everywhere and intentionally spying on us. I do not want to live in a world where the cameras have the ability to monitor our faces and determine where we are, where we're going, where we go to eat on certain days if we have routines, and be able to monitor those routines and compile that data in the data centers that are also being built without our consent. You can call it a conspiracy theorist, a theory. I'm reading these tea leaves right now, and I do not like the trajectory that we are on. To me, it is un-American, and we shouldn't be accepting it. And Ali says they do that already to a certain extent. And thank you for the follow, Steven. Everybody follow all my accounts, please. Um, you're right. And to a certain extent, I mean, Ali, I'm talking to you right now through a camera that's being monitored by AI and surveillance right now. The same entities that have stock in Flock have stock in TikTok. Didn't intend for all of it to rhyme that way. Maybe anything that ends in the awk is all owned by the same company. I don't know. Somebody look that up. But it's unavoidable to a certain extent unless you want to get rid of all of your money, go live in a cabin somewhere and just hunt your food and cook your own stuff and do what you need to do there. My worry is right now you need a warrant if you think I'm committing crimes to investigate me. In a world where flock cameras are everywhere, you do not need the warrant to be investigating me. You're investigating me all the time, and the second I break a law, whether it be one of the bad ones or one of the fake ones. Um, you you're surveilling me at that point. And so it kind of ties in with the first part of the conversation surrounding the 14th Amendment. To me, the flock cameras are a complete infringement on the Fourth Amendment of illegal search and seizure. If I am perpetually being searched and can be seized as a result of that perpetual searching, then what are we talking about right now? The black community has been dealing with this their entire existence. Why you pull me over? I smelled weed. Now shut up. Good luck proving if they smell weed or not, you know? Global Solidarity Now says your comment is being analyzed. Exactly. I am fully aware. And it's a running bit with my TikTok crew. But like, I have been shadow banned since June 2nd. My videos barely get seen by 100 people after having been seen by thousands of people before I came out and spoke about a certain billionaire, his island, and the way things were operating there, amongst other things. The systems that be can clamp down on your speech. They can monitor what you're saying. They can spy on you. But the fact is, the law enforcement element can only happen if we let it. The reason that people want these cameras is some kind of preconceived notion about crime. In my opinion, a preconceived notion that isn't real. Coming from a city, coming from a place where I'm not going to pretend that it was like, oh, you were ducking strays the entire time you were driving around the mean streets of Pittsburgh. That's not the case. But relative to the Fox Valley, you guys don't know what crime is. I'm just going to be real. You guys don't know what crime is relative to where I am from. And the idea that we have to have these flock cameras anywhere in the Fox Valley in order to crack down on crime is a laughable assertion. Not to say that there isn't crime, not to say that crimes might not be solved if these cameras were there, but what we sacrifice in the name of having those cameras is bad news, in this talk show host's humble opinion. Dana says, I don't either necessarily, but the law enforcement aspect here is what's scary. Exactly. We have examples of people spying on people. Hell, my job is talking shit on politicians. Do you think I want to live in a world where anytime I leave, there's cameras reading my license plates and letting politicians and law enforcement know what way I'm going at all times? I don't. People say we're going to use it to crack down on DWIs or DUIs, depending on where you're listening to me right now. Or what do you guys call them? OW. Whatever. Um, if we really care about OWIs, how about we make it so that you can't get 47 and still have your license? Like, if that's something we actually care about, I think I have found a couple of different possibilities for us to crack down on this without becoming a hyper surveillance state. Is crime bad enough to warrant perpetual surveillance at every corner? Yeah, exactly. I didn't even read that comment, Violet, I had there. Aaron, the intern, who's been in the chat today. Love when you're in the morning shows, Aaron, as I do for all of you. Uh, I just can't believe that there are good intentions at the forefront with these cameras. I would have to agree. And Ali says they're just replacing, they're upgrading the cameras with Flock. Very well could be. And again, if a private store wants their property monitored by these cameras, that's fine. I am a firm believer in private property. You want to put those cameras up. I, as a customer, have the right to not go places where I'm uncomfortable being surveilled. That's 100% okay. putting it on the red lights, putting it on the street lights, doing all those things. Nah, get the hell out of here. Alex says, remember what I said at the public comment. We need to focus on drunk driving to prevent it. Yes, exactly. Not cameras to catch it. That isn't preventing it. I totally agree with you. I'm coming from a state where after the third DUI, you lose your license, can't drive anymore. Now, it doesn't mean people don't. It doesn't mean that that eliminates drunk driving, but it most certainly nips it in the bud relative to the things that take place in Wisconsin. If you're listening to me in Wisconsin, we've all seen the map, right? We've all seen the map of the drunkest counties in America and where like 12 of the 20 counties are. We all know what we are in this state, right? If we're actually serious about cracking down on that element of crime, there are ways to do it without becoming a police state because you know what? Other states don't deal with it at the same prevalence that we do. The Republican Party only wants to talk about it when it was a Mexican doing a DUI. And it seems like the flock people want to pretend like this is to catch everybody, and something tells me that same conservative party is going to convince you that we'll use it to catch Mexicans doing DUIs. And the first time it's used against them, they'll be like, what? I'm trying to keep up with some comments here. I apologize for the moments of silence. People's personal cameras are used to harass and harm others. Meta glasses are terrible, especially for women who are typically the ones being harassed by men using them. Yeah, I wouldn't like it at all. It would make it feel like I just couldn't be myself. And Lainey says, I live next door to Minnesota. It's bad here too. I believe it. If it's this cold all the time, I'd probably, have to drink too. Guys, isn't it crazy how much your political views change through the years when you actively seek the truth? I couldn't agree with you more. My political views change all the time. Anyone who maintains political views isn't trying. Herb says, but if they focus on catching drunk driving, it increases the revenue coming in. Well, I do have a theory about that. That's why the Fox Valley has so many random roads where it's like 50 miles an hour, haha, LOL, just kidding, 35, and like no heads up. And if you're not from here, you're definitely going to get a ticket. Genuinely, I'm not even making this up. I would call my friends in Pittsburgh and I would tell them that there were roads that did that, and they would say, "Why does that happen?" I'd say my theory, there's not enough actual crime for police to crack down on and make money off of. So they change the roads um, in the middle of the road while they're a straightaway. It's just like it's a straightaway road, it's 50, LOL, now it's 35 with like no heads up. And I'm a genuine believer that that's to get $200 per speeding ticket because they're not getting it. Trust me, coming from a community that's a little more diverse than the Fox Valley, you guys don't have enough diversity to make the kind of money that other cities do. I wouldn't put it past the drunk driving part either. Allie's making fun of me saying roads are made of physics. Allie, I'm telling you, come visit the Fox Valley. Your mind's going to be blown because it's just a straightaway road and you're just like cruising along at 55 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden you're 20 miles over the speed limit without any warning. And then you get a ticket. Ethan says 0.08% isn't even a hard number. They can arrest you under that if they deem you impaired. Imagine Flock tracking you leaving a bar, cop pulling you over, and you don't blow zeros, but you're not drunk. It could happen. And Herb says when Ben stops talking and I don't have the browser in the foreground, I start thinking that he's been silenced. Well, yeah, I'll be real, Herb. And I love it. I'm not complaining at all. I want you guys to inundate me with messages, but relative to the lesser than radio stations talk and text line, this is a much more active chat than what I'm used to. So, like, I have to take moments of silence. And what's funny is, it's because you've been listening to me for so long. Go listen to traditional talk radio, and like those right wingers that don't know what the hell they're talking about, they'll be like, and the crazy part is, these liberals don't understand it. They don't get it because they have to take their time to actually compose their thoughts. Whereas I take the Gatling approach to words and try to see how many individual words I can fit into a 2 hour period. And then when the show wraps up, I'm like, why does my jaw hurt so much? So maybe I've painted myself into a corner with this kind of delivery style, but especially until my advertisers kick in, which probably is going to be maybe August, definitely by September. Then I can get some commercial breaks to kind of rest myself, but I probably am going to have to monitor the pace at which I do this show because the rapid fire approach to words without any commercial breaks and minimal phone calls or interaction is it's interesting to keep up. Rusty says he joined his local DSA. The movement's picking up steam. We're getting into that into the 10 o'clock hour. DSA had more successes in Colorado last night. And of course, the mainstream is absolutely livid about that. Violet says they do it to the elderly population around here, all by the same cops. Will there be cow tipping? I'm always tipping cows. Just don't go to any stupid websites to go and look for it. Um, I can do a teacup time if I need to. Nah, I could never leave you guys. But so if you are, I see the YouTube numbers going up further and further. If you're just joining us, we wrapped up a conversation with the alderman for the first district of Nina, um, Brian Deferding, talking about flock cameras and the behind closed doors meeting that Nina is insisting on having that he seems to be is not the way to do things. It was a very interesting conversation. It will be available on my personal YouTube page or Tube of You page. My bad, TikTok. Uh, that works. Just search my name and of course subscribe. I think it'll be easier when you can play video clips. That will help as well. I need to get that OBS up and running. I got a lot of things still in the works here. If you weren't here at Ben After Dark last night, hold on. Things are happening. Things are happening. I promise. It's going to be professional here. Damn it! If it kills me, it's going to get professional. But we're just not there yet because silly me, I still put a lot of time into content creation, so I make sure that I have enough to talk about with you guys, so that you guys don't get bored listening to me. Born and Raised said, suggestion, play a pre-recorded segment to catch a break. Okay, well, I appreciate all the tips. We'll get there. Susan says, don't tip cows, tip Republicans. I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, everybody hit the likes on all my things. And also check out Minocqua Brewing as well. As I've kind of been intimating, if you check my bio, either on the Tube of You or the Book of Faces, I have a link there that has all of my stuff, Minocqua's stuff, and if you're in a position to do so, I have my not my PayPal, my Venmo set up for anybody who wants to contribute to an independent creator while I kind of stabilize myself here. Anybody who's in a position to give, I appreciate anything you guys are willing to do. Political says, I listen to right-wing radio sometimes, and wow, are they mad about the DSA? Big scared. Establishment Dems as well, says Blue Canary. Just Jay just says DSA, DSA. I feel that. Herb says, like early, like often. Vote early, vote often, as Jar Manny oftentimes says. And I'm right there with you. But so we're just about to hit the 10 o'clock hour. So this is as good a time as any to kind of pivot on the conversation here into the elections of last night. And let me, anybody who wants to join via TikTok, you guys know the drill. I'm going to copy a new link here for anybody that wants to chime in on the Tube of You / Facebook pages. And of course, I'm just realizing right now that this is the first time I'm going to check YouTube. Allie, I saw you message about meeting earlier. That's fine. Just send a time in my text messages and we'll make that happen. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I haven't missed anything on the Facebook crew there as we roll along. And of course, I am Deanne. Shh, Ben, quiet down. Okay. D says, A, sign me up for a mug. I absolutely will. And then says, a U.S. citizen in Minnesota had a dash cam in her vehicle that showed ICE was harassing her, which is good, but it will be a very sad day when we all have to have personal dash and body cams to have a chance to get justice in a country where surveillance is everywhere. I have to agree with that sentiment because I've been kicking around the same idea. I used to do ride share. I used to drive Uber, DoorDash, and all the food ones as well. Um, And I had a camera in the front there just to make sure that nothing went awry. And honestly, even when you said you had the camera, I during COVID had an immunocompromised dad. So if you were going to get in my Uber, you were putting the mask on. You got an issue with that, you can wait for the next Uber driver. I don't give a crap. Get out of the car. And so with even with that, I remember that was why I stopped driving people. As I said, just so you know, I have a dash cam, and the guy got mad because I refused to let him in the car without a mask, and he started kicking my side view mirror off the side of my car. And thankfully, I had the camera on him when that was happening. Otherwise, I'm just down a mirror, you know. So I can't recommend enough uh, to to get one of those. So to get a dash cam just for the kind of purpose that Dee was talking about there on the Facebook chat. Even if you think that ICE isn't a threat. By the way, not a topic for today, but the moment I was getting on the air, I saw the local news talking about how ICE has been doing some calculated targeting um, of immigrants in our neck of the woods. So even though it's quieter, even though they're not being as big asses as they were on the in the Minnesota world and in the Chicago world, it is happening in Wisconsin, and it is happening in our neck of the woods. So just something to be aware of. Aaron, who lives out in Milwaukee, says ICE has been in Milwaukee a bunch lately, which sucks. Take it easy, political. They were over by the domes like 2 days ago. Well, it's not going anywhere. And mark my words, they will be quiet in Wisconsin because enough of us are vocal about it. I said this when I still was on the radio. It's no coincidence that the place where ICE is acting the most egregious are those states that will never actually vote for a Republican. And in swing states and in right wing states, ICE isn't there raising hell. It's just in blue states. That's not a coincidence. So I think Milwaukee will be, and Wisconsin at large, will be saved from the sweeping enforcement, but there will still be people, there will still be, instances for sure. Mike says new safety screening policies for Uber. If have a record of certain charges, you're out. Well, that's good. I think if I read that correctly, I feel like there might have been a little bit of a typo there. I don't know what this is a clip of. I was looking through my notes on the Twitter. Steve Kornacki is my favorite person that breaks down election results. So since I'm about to jump into the elections here, uh, I may as well play this. I don't know what he's going to say, but all I know is the caption on it says, "Bro, I'm crying at this clip. The state of the Republican Party has broken Steve Kornacki." Let's watch this. He's the only good thing about mainstream media is Steve Kornacki. Let's watch together.
Has made a series of explosive, inflammatory claims here about his own biography. You say he said that when he was 7 years old, he said, without providing details, that his stepfather had made him kill another man. He talked about, again, alluded to having killed others around the world under circumstances that he didn't. Victor Marx is running for.
Okay, all right. There wasn't any news there, but that's funny. All right. So anyway, well, what are you saying here, Graham? They are swing two here in Maine, but we also have a Somali population. Yeah, I'm sure they're probably high up on the target list as well. But so elections were yesterday, primaries were yesterday, and I have to say, pretty interesting outcomes there. Well, a couple more comments. You guys still have a few more things to say about body cams, then we'll move on to the elections. Herb saying the only time the on-duty police body cam should be allowed to be turned off is if they are dealing with a CI, which makes sense. That's a confidential informant for those of you not in the know. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Couldn't agree more. Jim says, I saw Appleton DPW bagging flock cameras yesterday. I guess they were serious about removing them. It's about time. It's about freaking time as far as I'm concerned. But I wouldn't be surprised if this recent example of a criminal, oh my, being caught with a flock camera doesn't start to reinvigorate interest, because now they know they got to rally the troops. And no offense to my older audience, I know a handful of the comments I just got were from boomers. And I know not all of you guys are kind of falling in line with this, but there is something about law and order that gets your generation going. And I'm worried that they're going to try and pull those cards out again to try and invigorate the same groups of people that seem to always find themselves susceptible to that line of thinking. Carla saying, I didn't think they would move that fast. I love that. I love that. In Colorado, the DSA, Democratic Socialists, have racked up another win. Now, don't get me wrong. Colorado is not Wisconsin, but Colorado is also not New York. And I think that's worth highlighting. There is a changing of the guard happening before our very eyes. And I find it very interesting because one of the first things I learned in media, and I used to say this about sports talk, but realistically it's true about news talk as well. But I'll use sports talk just because it's even easier. There's only like 6 things that you can say when doing a sports show. You can either say the O-line is great or the O-line sucks. Does the quarterback hold the ball too long? Does the running back see the holes? Can the secondary hold up long enough if a pass rush isn't getting enough pressure? Is the pass rush phenomenal? There's only so many things that you can actually talk about. And yet ESPN has existed for 30 years, and, dozens of other sports stations as well, have all existed for dozens of years, decades, essentially recycling the same conversations over and over again and plugging new names in and taking the old names out. And fundamentally, it's the same thing beyond that. What I learned early in my media career is that you're not going to be original or stand out by finding unique content, because all the content's the same, whether it's security, whether it's Donald Trump's corruption, whether it's the outcomes of the election. But what you can change, what does make you stick out, is your framing and the priority in which you give different stories. With every fiber of my being, I wanted to start with the election results in Colorado yesterday, but I knew I was going to want some time to get to it. So I knew I had a guest and decided to move it. What's interesting is I've been doing the rounds, and only one mainstream source is carrying the Colorado elections at the top of every hour, as opposed to putting it somewhere in the middle. Do you guys want to guess which network is talking about the election results at the top of every hour? Yes, every single one of you got it right. It's Fox News, because they want to fearmonger around the DSA. If you watch liberal leaning networks, if you read the failing New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or any of those other options, they talk about it, but it's not necessarily the main story of the day. You know what is the main story? Donald Trump and his $1.2 billion that he has made off of crypto. And yeah, he's corrupt as crap. And it's not going to sway a single voter. So if you are in the business of trying to usher MAGA out the door, talking about Donald Trump's corruption isn't the path forward. It hits that dopamine charge for a lot of you in my audience, and I know those of you at Minocqua absolutely love to hear about that, and I get it. And he's corrupt, and he should be in jail. And look at what they did in South Korea to their president when he was obviously corrupt. And why can't we do that here? I have no idea. Why would MAGA not shut the hell up about Hunter Biden for 4 years and doesn't have a thing to say about the daily different examples of corruption every day? I get it. I get it. I get it. It's not going to change anything. Water is wet and Donald Trump is corrupt. Hello, Cassidy. Thank you for being here. Liberal stations are starting there and bumping the election results to halfway through. Here's where you got to step outside the box with me. Had the establishment politicians won their elections and beaten the DSA candidates, that would be the A block over Trump's corruption. If it could have been liberals win elections against progressives in less blue areas than New York, that would have been the top of every hour. That's how they would have framed it, because that to them would have been the biggest story. Is that okay? Everybody shut up about taxing the rich and Medicare for all. Your opinions are irrelevant. We're going to go back to milquetoast liberalism. I can't prove that, because we'd have to live in an alternate reality where the establishment candidate ended up coming away with the victory. But I also know that I am right. And keep that in mind if Haley Stevens beats El Said in her primary, or if Francesca Hong doesn't come out as the candidate in her primary. Pay attention to whether or not that hits the A block on the national scene or not, because I'm here to tell you right now, if it's the progressive, it's not the A block. If it's the establishment candidate, it is the A block. These are the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Nuance, not nuanced. It's disguised. It's not outright derision, but it is the subtlety in which they hide their frustration that the establishment candidates are struggling to come away with a win in less blue and less blue areas. It almost is starting to feel awkward when you see news reporters trying to talk to candidates about Donald Trump's corruption and not about affordability, not about the cost of living, not about what's going on with our energy rates. They don't want to talk about any of that. What they want to talk about is Donald Trump, because that still invigorates the bulk of the left leaning base. It's not rocket science what we're watching happen here. And if you didn't see it, it was quite the beatdown, almost 7,000 votes in the district. And for governor, he's not a progressive, but the Phil Weiser beat out Michael Bennet, despite the fact that he was massively outspent. And while he's not DSA, he is absolutely more progressive than what Michael Bennet was. He had 17 years experience in Congress and had all the money on his side, and Phil Weiser was able to come away with it. Both of those elections, amongst a handful of others, not all DSA, not all had rigorous primaries. And what's funny is, and I'm not even making this up, hold on, I want to pull the exact quote up here because I don't want to misspeak. Rachel Beitkofer, who is a liberal establishment hack on the Twitter, who's essentially a mouthpiece for what it is that liberals are trying to get across the finish line. This is real. In the aftermath of the election, and they were sent to Congress by an electorate of about 7% of the residents who vote in that, of residents of that congressional district. It's time to get rid of the direct primaries. Virginia did it. They used nominating conventions and got Spanberger, who won by 12 points. So the vote blue no matter who team. The vote for us if you want to preserve democracy team. The second it's not centrists and it's people on the actual left that are coming away with the victories, they no longer even want to have primaries where we get to vote anymore. They'd rather the delegates just get to vote for us. Fun fact, one of the 3 videos I have up on my YouTube tab under the videos tab is me talking to the delegates of the Congressional 7th District. And they're all wonderful people. I had a fantastic time there. I hope they'll have me back. I gave a 30-minute speech and I was looking out at the crowd while I was doing it. And I said, when, not if, but when the Democrats win the House back in November, I don't want to see impeachment hearings of Trump. I don't want to hear about we're going to hold the people of ICE to account. Not because I don't think those things should happen, not even because I don't want those things to happen. I do. But I know none of that's going to get across the finish line. You're going to cosplay, you're going to do kabuki theater, and nothing is going to ultimately end up coming from it. And then the people who are looking for some kind of fiscal relief are going to get pissed at you again. I said every single day, you should be putting fiscal legislation in front of this president and make him veto it. And what's interesting about that is when I started off saying, I don't want to see impeachment trials, you could see everybody's face sour on me. And then when I said, I want to see your fiscal policy, you saw the people who were making sour faces immediately go from to almost in an instant, because the delegates, while well-meaning, really don't have a grasp on what so many of us are struggling to deal with on a daily basis in America. And so the idea that the DSA is victorious in so many different places, the idea that people are telling the Democratic Party, this is what we want, and this is how we will come out in record numbers to help you put MAGA to bed. And they're trying to find ways to circumvent what the people are saying. Hey, what if we just don't let them vote? Because obviously they don't know what's good for them. The primaries were working fine when it's sending Anthony Weiner to the election. They're fine when we just skip over the primary entirely and Kamala Harris is at the top of the ticket. But you know what? I understand you guys nominated a Muslim socialist to be the mayor of New York, and I just don't know if you guys know what's good for you anymore. So maybe you should just let us tell you what's good for you. It's kind of interesting how that works, doesn't it? Isn't it? Who we have here? Old Lib says, don't break the law. Don't even think of breaking the law. Okay, yeah, that's still camera stuff. Susan's asking about water quality. Our water bangs, Susan. We have the best water. When I moved out here, everybody mocked me, and then an article got written that said we had the best water, and then we fell down to second. And shout out to Malia, who is going to be on the program tomorrow, actually, talking about flock cameras as well. She has wonderful social media presence and does a 24-hour breakdown of political news. We met at the first flock meeting that I went to, and I said, her and a mutual acquaintance of ours is also going to be on the program. I don't remember what time we agreed upon, but I'll have a Facebook post about that and a social post in general across all my socials later on today. But I appreciate that and the support. You're absolutely wonderful. Carlos saying Malia's our hero. Exactly. Steven says, haven't they all been doing that? How are these politicians able to stay in for 30, 40, 50 years? Well, to be honest, I think people just didn't care. I think what people are running into is a re-energized electorate that people haven't had to deal with. I've told this story recently, but a girl I went to elementary school with, in her late 20s, primaried and ended up beating the third highest ranking Democrat in all of Pennsylvania, jumping Jack DeFazio. He was a studio wrestler, which I realize there's not a huge studio wrestling culture up in Wisconsin. Let me tell you, if you are a studio wrestler from Western Pennsylvania, you may as well be the Pope. So he was a studio wrestler who didn't even bother campaigning. He just showed up every day, and when his name was on the ballot, he wasn't even primaried. He gets 70% of the vote in the general because it was a hyper blue area where he was one of those areas where the primary is the general, and then once you're in the general, you basically just coast. Bethany Hallam, who is my classmate, who is one of the biggest badasses in Western Pennsylvania. I actually might bring her on the show. Who's pushing back against prisons and jails, trying to reform them and treat the inmates of Western Pennsylvania with decency, regardless of the crimes that they committed. I know, an absolute travesty. Hits the doors, marketed herself, got her name out there, did the media hits, did the thing you needed to do. Not only did she beat him, she mopped the floor with him. And she was 10 years ahead of the curve. She's doing that in 2016. It's part of what motivated me to get into media. I'm like, damn, if Beth Hallam is doing that, I'm over here selling concrete software. What am I doing with my life? I need to start getting out there and start trying to find a way to enact a little bit of change. Waka waka. Here we are. The reason why you're starting to see all these people, the congressional district, hold on, let me make sure I'm saying her name right. DeGette is, I believe, is the correct way to say it. Let me yeah, Diana DeGette. She has been in her district since 1997. Milat Kiros, who beat her, was born in 1997. Now, I am not ageist. If DeGette has good ideas, I don't care that she's been in Congress for almost 30 years. As long as you're doing positive shit, couldn't possibly care less. Or at least trying to enact the positive stuff. Couldn't possibly care less. What I do know is um, when confronted at a coffee shop about her stance on sending money to our allies in the Middle East, um, she found herself cornered, and she said, if that's the only thing you're going to vote based on, then don't bother voting for me. That was her message. Take it easy, Susan. That was her message. Um, while she was campaigning. These people are so conceited, so certain that they're going to come away with a victory because she won every primary for 30 years. You know, she always wins the elections that she is in. Not to say that you have to be a DSA or leftist to win every election. I recognize that everything is different. But the mainstream media is trying to paint these left-wing victories as happening in fringe areas. And I'm here to tell you right now, you're about to see the war chest opened up and just flooded with Wisconsin's going to be flooded, especially if El Said comes out. Minnesota or Wisconsin's going to be flooded, especially if Hong comes out. For those of you that don't follow this stuff as closely as I do, especially in our neck of the woods, wow, Kuros is up over almost 13,000 lead at this point as more votes are coming in. The campaign's really kick into gear after the 4th of July. You're going to see the spots, you're going to see the money come in, you're going to see the attack ads, and I'm very excited for it. That's why my first gubernatorial interview with Kelda Royce is going to be Monday at 10 a.m. after the 4th of July weekend. You guys are all going to be dry-eyed. I'm going to be sober the entire weekend, working on this, working on pumping this stuff out there and getting myself put together a little bit better. And Monday, we're kicking off into gubernatorial time period here. From July 4th to August 11th, it is going to be an absolute shit show, and I am here for it. So all of these people take their primary victories for granted, and they're being caught off guard by young people with energy, more importantly, young people with new ideas, and probably most importantly, young people with popular ideas. I cannot stress enough, and I realize it's self-aggrandizing at this point. If Democrats just would have said what I was saying in January of 23, we are not dealing with Donald Trump right now. They decided it was a better strategy to try and fearmonger around what Donald Trump is rather than provide some evidence to why they should be voted for. And that was a terrible strategy. The people are telling them what they want. And they're like, okay, how can we pretend like we're not hearing that and still win these elections? And the answer is you don't. The answer is then people don't show up. And you're going to hear the term electability bandied about quite a bit in our state as well as plenty others. And I'm here to tell you right now, anybody's electable. Anybody's electable as long as you are listening to the populace. As someone highlighted yesterday, Mamdani convinced 10% of Trump voters to vote for him, and he's a freaking Muslim. Imagine if a white dude ran with progressive politics, how many... I'm interested to see what Plattner does, to be honest. Oh, Malia. So Brad Smith was on the show last week. I'm interested what you're going to say here. I've been in direct contact with Brad Smith, who is running for Congressional District 6. Yes. He acknowledged the war crimes privately, but is so far. Oh, he did it on my show last week, Malia. I'm not giving him excuses. I'm going to read the rest of your comments, but there are people in the chat right now who were listening to that interview, and he actually, it didn't go as far as I would have liked it to, but also, like, I don't expect everybody to be a carbon copy of me either. I can tell Allie, who's a dear friend of mine, kind of hated some of my comments today, and that's okay. People are allowed to disagree, and all of us still get along. But I get your point. But he has done it publicly on Outside the Box Unfiltered. She went on to say, I would encourage everyone who cares about Palestine and the war with our allies in the Middle East to pressure him further. Absolutely. And Justin says, did you see the Supreme Court struck down limits on what political parties can spend? GOP said it's a First Amendment issue. Of course they did, which was their exact argument before. I will say, to a certain extent, that is what that marks to me is the end of super PACs. It's just going to be more flagrant. But I don't think any of us were really buying into the idea that super PACs were on the up and up, you know? Ali said, not hate. I do agree. I just like taking both sides of all opinions I have. I have a problem. Well, I could have told you that last part. Um, but I appreciate that. And I'm good with the time you suggested. But so that election yesterday, I think, should really be exciting for anybody who's excited for the beginning of the new Democratic Party. To me, ideally, how we move this country forward is MAGA, we put that to bed. Democrats become the new reflection of the right wing, pro corporate, um, pro censorship, all the things that we know they are via the Kids Act and plenty of other things they're doing. And then leftists become what the new left is, the way Republicans talk about the left. What's funny is, I mentioned to start this segment, the left is winning elections right now. Fox News is the only ones running that as the A block. And the reason they're running it as the A block is because they want to call the left communists. Now, you may remember that Kamala Harris, while she was running Liz Cheney up on the stage, while she was running on Reagan era taxes, while she was running on continuing our relationship with our allies in the Middle East and continuing to invest in our military and border security, was also being referred to as Communist Kamala. What's funny is that they used to call all the Democrats socialists, and now they are beginning to realize that in a world where capitalism has left the better part of the millennial and Gen Z generations behind, term socialism is not a threat anymore. And what's crazier is most people, and far be it for me to speak for everybody, but I do think I have a pretty good finger on the pulse here. Most people, when they use the word socialism, aren't talking about Russia. What they're talking about is democratic socialism, taxing wealthy people more and making sure social programs are funded. And what they try and paint it as is the gulags, as opposed to, no, we just think trillionaires shouldn't exist. And as somebody who's going through it right now, you should not have to be able to come up with hundreds of dollars in order to make sure that you have access to healthcare in the wealthiest nation on the planet. And if that's socialism, then I guess I'm a socialist. And if you understand that that might just be basic common sense, well, that's another thing entirely. All right, what do we have here? Aaron says that's called critical thought. Keep challenging beliefs. Yeah, absolutely. Violet just says Ben, Benny, Ben, Ben. Thank you very much for that. Ishmael says, let's make the left actual lefty. Couldn't agree with you more. Now we're embracing the term, says Just Jay. Baba goes on to say communism isn't even a real threat either. Remember, China is building better housing than anyone else. It is hard to ignore that. But Ishmael, we also have to deal with In China, they have cameras everywhere and they're spying on you. So it's not like we have to worry about that here. So that's what we trade. We trade instability economically for not being monitored by our government 24/7. And I realize you weren't here for the first hour. Please understand that there is a healthy dose of sarcasm levied onto that comment right there. Um, yeah. All right, and then over on the YouTube chat, we have Old Lib saying young people. I'm sorry, on TikTok they can give me gifts that like technically give me money, so I appreciate you for doing that, but then randomly they like there's a thing that pulls my cheeks and turns me into a cat, and then I struggle keeping a straight face when that happens. Soon enough, you guys are all going to be on the same thing. I'm done making promises. Old Lib says young people are the strongest part of the DSA. If they vote in the primary, they need to show up big in the general. They'll show up bigger. I remember, so there was a guy, the only person I've ever banned from my radio show, who would call from West Virginia. And he would say, young people are irrelevant. You guys think you're all so important, but you're not. And you guys think we need to cater to you, but we don't. We're going to win without you. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and we don't care if young people show up. And I would say that during when Janet Protasewicz, the Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice, beat Dan Kelly back in April of 2023, there was a video of UW Eau Claire, and it was a time-lapsed video, so it was sped up. And the video was a minute and a half long. And it was somebody walking, showing you all the students voting in April for a Supreme Court justice because they were frustrated about what happened with Roe and frustrated about the trajectory of life in general. And then he would laugh in my face and say, you have such delusions of grandeur, it's never going to happen. And then the exit polling data came out after Kamala Harris got shellacked in November of 24. And people say young people trended towards MAGA. That couldn't be further from the truth. There was an uptick in 18 to 29 for Republicans, absolutely. 1.2 million more 18 to 29-year-olds voted for Donald Trump in 2024 than did in 2020. Now, that's not apples to apples. Some people age out of that demo, some people age into that demo, but by and large, a lot of the people voting there are the same people. 1.2 million is not something to sneeze at, but Kamala Harris's 18 to 29 dropped by over 7 million because she was not speaking to the concerns of young people at all. And yes, I realize some of you believe that the conflict between our allies in the Middle East and Gaza is an eye roll. But if you believe that, fine. I'm not here to convince you that that's something that young people should be voting on. They also are voting on affordability. And for 2 weeks, Kamala Harris was talking about holding wealthy people to account. And then Reid Hoffman, the billionaire CEO of LinkedIn, showed up and said, actually, let's talk about literally anything else other than that. And then they marched J.B. Pritzker up on stage during the DNC, someone whose ideas intrigue me, mind you. And he said, Donald Trump likes to claim he's a billionaire. Let's take advice from an actual billionaire, to a standing ovation at all the Democratic delegates at the DNC. The reason young people didn't show up is because not only were they not were they not DSA, but they weren't even pretending like they were going to do something even remotely leftist once they got into office, and young people bailed. Mark my words, run a candidate that is talking like these leftist candidates. You know why Joe Biden is the only one of the 3 blue MAGAs to beat Donald Trump? Because he stole Bernie Sanders' entire platform and then ended up implementing like 1.5% of it. But he at least talked like a progressive. Hillary Clinton tried to pretend like she was Republican light. Not pretend, she was. Clinton presented herself as Republican light. Kamala presented herself as Republican light. Joe Biden had plenty of room to grow, and I still maintain He is the most progressive president of my lifetime, and he was not nearly progressive enough. That's how you win. Because here's the real kicker, and I defy somebody who identifies as more centrist in a friendly way to chime in as part of the show and have this conversation with me. I, as somebody who identifies as someone on the left, can tell you what ticks me off about the Democratic Party. I can tell you, here's the three things I want the Democratic Party to do, and here's how they can win my vote. And they choose to ignore all of it. They choose to do none of it and actually run on the opposite of it. Then a progressive comes out of the primary. And Democrats think they're being fancy and they're saying, well, didn't you say that Kamala had to earn your vote? Well, this progressive has to earn our vote. Cool. I absolutely agree. Anybody who thinks a politician doesn't have to earn your vote is not doing politics the right way. You should not automatically voting for someone. I'll tell you what, Hong is my favorite candidate right now as it stands. If she wins and then messes around once she gets into the governor's house, this will be the loudest show calling her out on her BS. All right? So it's not a matter of falling in line and pretending like you're in a fan club or something like that. What about progressivism or democratic socialism turns you off as a Democrat? Because I get that Republicans cosplay as the free market Reaganists and we want to give tax cuts to wealthy people and trust us, it'll trickle down. Democrats claim to be against that and then continue doing Reagan era policies. So, like, what about progressive politics don't you like? Because I think that is a big gap that needs to be jumped over if we're going to be able to coalesce as a party. Because the left has made clear in several instances what our allies in the Middle East are doing with our tax dollars is disgusting, and we want it to stop. The public option was a compromise 15 years ago. Now we straight up want Medicare for all. Taxes, America's middle class was the strongest between taxes were between 70 and 91%. In our entire lives, the highest it's ever gotten is to 37%. Can you do better than that? There is a laundry list of things that people want. And I'd argue there's people on the left, in my opinion, that go too far in terms of open borders. The idea that they don't want any kind of monitoring about what's going on. And I understand the hypocrisy of that because I'm only here because Americans in the 1600s stole this land from somebody else. The irony is not lost on me while acknowledging that there still has to be some semblance of guidance here going forward, in my opinion. I am not some far left radical that can't be talked to or rationalized with. So, like, what is the drawback in your mind from the left as a centrist that turns you off? Because I'm here to tell you right now, if Sarah Rodriguez comes out of the Democratic primary on the up and up, she's got my vote. David Crowley, who, by the way, is parroting the Hassan Piker line that the Journal Sentinel is parroting that I kind of dispelled yesterday on my show. But if he wins, he's got my vote. Mandela Barnes has my vote. Any one of these people has my vote as long as they stay on the up and up and talk a certain way. If they embrace right-wing ideas, we're going to have an issue. But assuming they run the traditional way that Democrats pretend to act, I'm here for it. So what is it that when a progressive wins, when a leftist wins, when a socialist wins, centrists are like, well, I'm not voting for that person. They have to earn my vote. Okay, cool. Tell us how. What do you guys think about that? I'm going to check my Facebook page, see if anybody's leaving comments there. Rusty says, Dem too often, GOP light. What are you guys saying over here? And I appreciate all the gifts. What's up, Danny for Sheriff? Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming on the show last week and never correcting me for mispronouncing your last name. Aaron says, we already have a party for moderates. It's called the Current Democratic Party. Ooh, you bad. You bad. Good stuff there. Trees are cool, says, oh, girl, I would love to know this. Great question. I agree. I agree. because we all know the answer online. It's fake accounts that don't want to admit that they're in favor of what is. There is an element of Islamophobia in the Democratic Party, and it's a layover from that fateful day in September of 2001. Um, and if you were impacted directly by it, like, far be it for me. But like I've always shared, my brother's best friend since he was 5 years old was a kid from Saudi Arabia, and we always used to go out and party with their parents. And then after that day, we still partied with them all the time, but we never left their house because they didn't want to be seen in public because of the way Americans acted left, right, and center towards them when we went out. And so I clearly what's up, Roberto? I clearly have my own personal experience for why I was able to reject that attitude. But the fact is, they don't want to say it because they know it's not politically expedient. But that's part of the reason why they won't vote for progressives, is because progressives are saying we're done furthering the misery and destruction of the Muslim population. And if you've got a problem with that, then you're going to need to vote elsewhere. And like, that's very clearly, they don't want to say it out loud. I'm sitting here playing dumb, but I'm telling you right now, they don't want to say it out loud. And that is a major disconnect right now. They don't want to crack down on the corporate interests, even though they'll call out Donald Trump and his relationships. Can you believe these corporations are bending the knee to Donald Trump? First of all, stop quoting Game of Thrones. None of you ever said bend the knee before Game of Thrones. And secondly, you guys were cozied up to the exact same corporations because they were throwing rainbow flags in their logo in June back in 2023. We were sitting there telling you they were cosplaying. If you think for a single second that Nike didn't have a spreadsheet the day Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and they said, okay, this is how much money we will make from the black community and allies of the black community if we stand with Colin Kaepernick. Here's how much money we'll make if we don't do that. They ran the numbers, they saw what it was, and it turns out they would make more money if they joined Colin Kaepernick. Not for a single second did they actually believe in the message that Colin Kaepernick was putting out there, or even care what the message was. They looked at the dollars, they followed the money. Putting the rainbow flags, they looked at the dollars, they followed the money. Now cozying up to Donald Trump, they looked at the dollars, they followed the money. This isn't rocket science here. And the Democratic Party wants to convince you, well, some of these mega corporations are good. You know what billionaires are cool? The dude who runs Arizona Ice-T, Tony Stark, and Bruce Wayne. That's it. That's the whole list. I've expired the entire list. Maybe one or two, notwithstanding that I can't remember. And two of those are fictional, by the way. The guy that made Sriracha Violet said, I'll give it, fine. I'll add him. I don't know his name, but none of us know his name. I also don't know the Arizona Iced Tea guy, to be frank. I don't know who Mackenzie Scott is. Ben and Jerry are all right. This is good. This is good. Who's Mackenzie Scott? I know Anna told me about some billionaire woman who's like trying to completely redo healthcare. What's up, Larry? In a positive way, and I'm in favor of that. Oh, Bezos' ex-wife. Hell yeah. She's all right. She actually, I said this yesterday. It's the greatest revenge these billionaire ex-wives can have, because they get half of their money in the divorce, but the way billionaire money works is they make that money back in a year. You know what I mean? What their ex-wives are proving is they can donate tens of billions of dollars into the system, and then they see that money come back, and it highlights that we can tax these MFers more. It's the best example. Like, she just gave away $23 billion and now she's worth 33 billion more than what she gave away. And it's like, wait a minute, how? And like, I made those numbers up, but look them up. Kathy, you say Tom Steyer. I'm back and forth on that. I can't tell if he's pretending or if he's real, because he had some good messaging in the California primary for sure, but I struggle trusting any billionaire that made his money off of the private prison system and then pretends that he didn't know what kind of system he was enacting by doing so. So I don't know if I have Tom Steyer on that list or not, and we'll never know because he didn't make it out of the primary. Not to say that Becerra was any better. He's bought and paid for by every single corporation out there. He's what liberalism is to a T. He's Gavin Newsom, you know? That's what he is. And yeah, fair. Somebody else said Ben and Jerry's as well. I think that's a good list. That's a good addition. Um, but by and large, not impressed. D saying the candidate in Colorado's 29 years old, and the person who she replaced had been in office for 30 years. Time for generational change. Again, I maintain if you're older or have been doing this for a while and have good ideas and your heart's still into it and you're up to date, more power to you. Keep doing it. I don't like, and I appreciate you, D, but I never want to, no pun intended, put myself in a box. Because when an old person who has my beliefs comes around, I want to be able to support them, and you guys not be like, but Ben, I thought we had to get younger. Like, no, we have to get smarter. I oftentimes say being a leftist, you get called ageist a lot and you get called anti-Semitic a lot. And I said, it's very ironic that the guy that got me into politics then is one of the oldest Jewish people in politics. It's almost like you guys don't know what you're talking about, and I don't look at anything through identity. But like, I'm glad younger people are getting involved. I'm glad younger people are winning, but I don't think that that woman had to leave because she's been in office for 30 years. I believe that she had to leave because she was no more reflective of what the Democratic Party stands for. And in my opinion, what the Democratic Party always stood for. It's hard to describe to some of you that aren't millennials, and maybe to a certain extent Gen Z, because we were cognizant enough. I was 10 days away from turning 14 in 2001 when the event happened. And I watched the entire Democratic Party position themselves as anti-war, anti-conflict, get your troops out of the Middle East. We shouldn't be doing this violence. We shouldn't be bombing these communities, only to turn around and allow Obama to get away with it for 8 years, only to then turn around and condemn Donald Trump for not getting us out of Afghanistan, only to then turn around and get us out of Afghanistan, but then support the atrocities going on in Gaza. And so I'm sitting there being like, well, wait a minute. I was raised to believe you guys were actually the anti-war party, and now here we are, and it seems as though you're basically just Republican light on this front as well. And so when Daggett can't say what's going on in the Middle East is disgusting, that's not how people my age think. We look at that and we're like, what the fuck is that? And I think that's rightfully so. Like, and we want our candidates to reflect that going forward. We want our candidates not to say that things are impossible. And every day it feels like I'm coming across another Mom Donnie story where he's done something that's balanced the budget or fixed this issue or addressed this problem. And it's always just like, how is he doing this quickly as a bleeping mayor? And why can't our Congress do any of this? Like, it's becoming abundantly clear just how little interest so many people in politics had in addressing these issues. And yeah, Republicans, they're not going to do anything. This is all they care about in the Republican Party. And they get mad when I say it, and it's the unfortunate reality that it's real. But the Democratic Party says, hey, you see these guys? Look at that. We're done with it. All right, problem solved, which is good. That's good. Net positive. Right there, we're already on a better trajectory than we were before. Okay, well, we're done for 4 years. Make sure you show up in 2032. We'll be looking for you. Really think about it. People in my Wisconsin crowd, we can't throw a stone without hitting a politician in an election year. When's the last time you have heard a political a figure? When's the last time you've seen Eric Hovde, who lost the election to Tammy Baldwin, who was Mr. Wisconsin, according to him, despite the fact that he had to move here from California? When's the last time you've seen Eric Hovde? Exactly. So they do one thing and then they move. Craig says Democrats have no spine whatsoever. Absolutely. All right, we got a bunch of messages coming through on YouTube. Jarmani says Ben and Jerry's sold out, but there was some deal that they had to keep progressive stuff associated with them. Interesting. I didn't know that. Hal says Elon criticized her for giving her money away because it's hard. Probably means he can't figure out how to write it off from his taxes. Exactly. I mean, you don't need to get me, you don't really need to coax me to shit on Elon Musk. You're exactly right. He's the same person that said, not only did he say it was hard, he said the places where she was donating her money was only going to make society worse. Because he's the guy who said, give me an itinerized plan of how to address poverty and specifically food insecurity around the world, and I'll do it. And they said, for $6 billion, here's what we can make happen over the course of the next 12 months. And he said, nah, never mind. Elon Musk is trash. Um, Serial Killer Clown says, didn't Bill Clinton start the bombings of random Muslims? He didn't start it, but he did it to distract from the fact that he hooked up with his intern. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was a child then, so not to say it doesn't count, but like my political awareness starts the day the towers fell, you know? Not to say it wasn't on in my house. My parents always had it on. But my political awareness started there, but you're exactly right. Bombs Over Baghdad, the Outcast song is a song from before the towers fell. So obviously this was an issue before then. Don't pull that thing out unless you plan the bang, you know? Jarmani saying I worked at a local newspaper during that day in 2001 and watched them monetize it as quickly as they could. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a South Park episode from then where Stan's mom is on the couch drooling and she never walks away from cable news. She just sits there watching it. Their ratings are through the roof. Killer Clown says, I'm going to call you CKK going forward. A big part of Mom Donnie's fiscal repairs is just borrowing from pensions. See, I've read part that and part that he's not borrowing, but he's taking the money back from the state. And it's kind of like the concept where, like, Alabama, people in Alabama vote for Republicans, they bitch about socialism nonstop. And sorry, I was trying to see what Trump's doing right now. And then they are one of the biggest recipients of welfare. Like, if I remember correctly, Wisconsin is a net giver in terms of tax dollars. The city of New York, it works on state levels as well. So the city of New York actually donates to the state. And so what Mamdani did is say, we give the state, we give the rural areas of New York a lot of money to keep them afloat. We're recalling some of that money and we're balancing our own budget. And then those places are going to need to figure it out. Because as I've stated on my show a billion times over, the only reason the actual rural communities in America, like the places that have between 600 and 2,000 people living there, are able to exist is because of the liberal hellholes that they seem to hate so much. And if it weren't for them, their way of life wouldn't work. The government services that get there wouldn't be able to get there. You wouldn't be getting your mail, the FEMA stuff, whatever the situation is. All of the federal services that get to rural areas would not be happening if it weren't for blue cities. And it's the same idea. So New York City was operating at a deficit. Mom Donnie's the first one to say, we got our own plans that we have to deal with here for a moment. And for the record, it's not like he's funding stupid programs or hyperinflating the police budget. He funded libraries in perpetuity so that children always have access to books. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a bit of a literacy problem in America these days, and limiting access to books, which is what's happening in Wisconsin, is not going to help the matters. So he recalls the money. I need to look into the pension claims because there are issues with that if that is the case, but it doesn't seem as cut and dry as you're making it there either. Yeah, I don't really buy ice cream that much either. That's just it. I'm the worst consumer. Like, I go to the movies. That's what I do. That's how I spend money. Like, it's the only thing I spend money on. Libraries are woke. I know you're joking, but come on now. Let's see here who's trying to come on. I'll tell you what, we got a new listener, Craig, yesterday night from TikTok. We'll let you get your thoughts in. We're just about to wrap the show up from today, but I can give you a minute or two. What's on your mind? Let me turn you up here, actually. Hold on. What's on your mind?
Am I on?
Yeah, what's up?
I'm accidentally hitting the request button because it's so close to the likes.
Oh, no worries, dude. That's been happening a lot lately. I appreciate you tapping that like button, though, but no
And
worries.
I've just been cracking jokes on Bill Clinton and that he did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Of course.
And technically, a cigar is not a penis, and that's what my mama said. So just dumb shit because I'm in a goofy mood. I got too much coffee in the Mets.
I feel it, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. We'll hear you during the night live here, but I love it.
All right, I followed you on YouTube. I'm Craig Zink, ZINC on YouTube. So
Perfect.
that's still me.
Right on, dude. I appreciate it. You take it easy. Yeah, he's listening from a northern part of Ohio that's predominantly MAGA, and he discovered my show last night. I do Ben After Dark, and that's a little more laid back, as you can tell. And he's an interesting cat for sure. I'm glad he found the show though. As people say, I'm here for the goofy shit. Other people talking about how the TikTok shop is amazing. Yeah, we got to watch the words that we use because TikTok will censor me, as I've learned. But we're just about out of time here for today. But that's all I have for you. If you didn't get a chance to listen to the entire episode, I believe Kirk told me that Minocqua archives those. So if you are a follower of the Minocqua Brewing Company, the show Outside the Box is always going to be available there. And obviously, as Craig just mentioned, I do have the Ben Comino's YouTube page, which is where I archive all of my shows as well. Every subscription helps me. Once I get to 1,000, I actually can put ads on the thing and monetize it and make a little bit of extra money and start to become a truly independent creator. Not that I do not appreciate all the sponsors who have already agreed to jump on board, but obviously I'd like to be able to say what I want all the time. And the best way for me to achieve that is for you guys. That doesn't cost you anything. Just subscribe. If you are in a position to pay a little bit, I also do have Venmo in my link tree, in my bios, on my Facebook and YouTube page. So and I keep saying these words. Jen's probably having a fit right now because I'm going to get shadow banned on my live. Wait, what did Carla say? Local folks. Oh, hold on, time out. Come down to Tardigrades at 4 p.m. For the ribbon cutting of a new community fridge. That's at Tardigrade's Bookshelf in downtown Appleton. If you're in the area, go ahead and check it out. I might be able to make it. I have to assess the situation. Any way that you're able to help facilitate this new chapter of my life, I appreciate the help that you can give. And even if it's just your views, you hanging out for a little bit, you chiming in on the comments, getting your opinions out there, go take part in local politics. Get out there and make a difference. We all do the little part that we can. We hate the national scene, and I get that, but we can impact the local scene, and the local drips into the state, which state drips into the national. Be the change you want to see, and hopefully this show helps facilitate that attitude a little bit in all of your lives. I absolutely love that so many of you guys hung out with me here today for the entirety of the show. Even at the end here, we're at the end and a bunch of you guys left, and we're still well over 100 people across all the different apps. You're all wonderful. We're only going to get bigger from here. Thank you for being here, guys, and we will talk to you all in the near future. And if somebody could get Justin, you know what, Justin? I will get you the Discord chat. I saw you ask that earlier. We got to start putting the Discord link in the YouTube chat once I mod some people. We'll knock that out today. Everybody, have a lovely afternoon. We will talk to you guys maybe tonight, Ben After Dark, 7 to 8 p.m. Talk to you then.